What's up, world? I am Thunder Thief, and today we're talking about track 10 on my album Past Amore. This one's called Comical. I got real into writing music outside in 2020, and I got together this whole rig to basically create a mobile studio, and I could work and do essentially everything I do in my studio at home I could do outside. This spurred a couple like camping trips up in the mountains, and I would just write music by a river and still have the ability to like make electronic stuff and record and loop all my ideas, and I just wanted to share it with everyone. One of the people I wanted to share it with the most was my friend Noah. He and I have a long history of being bass brothers, essentially, and we were both in bands in high school that played with each other, and we just kept writing music around each other for years. And over a decade ago, we would jam and have band practices at his dad's house. And unfortunately, I came over one day to unload my gear and reset the room, and I found his father dead in the house. And I've always had this like just terrible feeling since then about like death and seeing it and seeing how it resonates and affects people. And I think that really cracked open a lot of like the existential contemplation stuff of, you know, what is the reason you're here and what do you want to do before you die? And I feel like there's this kinship between Noah and I and my friend Keone, who was also there, that a lot in Noah's life changed like that day. And after my mom passed, now I totally understand to a much deeper degree, but I haven't seen Noah very often or talked to him for a very long time. And I love that dude and love hanging out when we get to. And he's kind of aloof. He is very focused on his work. He works at this comic book shop and is also like one of the funniest dudes alive. So when him and I finally got together, he brought his bass and we were out in this park that our friends throw like this annual Memorial Day barbecue at. And I got the studio set up, and he showed me this bass idea that he had come up with. And that's just this really ethereal, beautiful example of the kind of bass player that Noah is. And I like the dirtiness of it. Like the reason there's that electric buzz in there is because we're just plugged into like a battery generator. So the noise level is what it is. And that imperfection, I think, is a nice character on top of this like beautifully performed melodic bass riff, is this like ground noise. And when you put that on top of his counter melody that he also wrote on top, we were just off to the races so fast. I had brought my guitar too to like show him what I had built, because I'm so proud of that thing and love showing it to anyone who cares about guitars at all. And right after he showed me that, I recorded it, looped it, and came up with this guitar chord intention. Really, it's not really a progression, it's just like a arpeggiation of one chord, but I love the way it sounds. And I loved the idea of having the same instrument occupy like two different spaces and intention. Like Noah's bass had both this like chorded progression as well as this like little melodic single lead thing. So I wrote this arpeggio to sit on top of it and like counteract everything. And that's got this crazy harmonizer on it, and it's sitting in the back, but it's supposed to have this like kind of creepy sound. And I think it does a great job. It was fascinating making a song in this park. I had speakers set up, like we were just bumping to whoever wanted to listen. And throughout the session, there would be a few different groups of people that would just like sit there and hang out, and like we would talk to while we were making stuff, and they would ask questions about how we were doing things and just enjoy the music sometimes and not say anything. And it was really beautiful to share the process of like what it is to make a song in my world and share it with people like in real time and get that return. Because the biggest problem for me when having to do all this stuff online is like, you can point a camera and make something cool, but if you don't have like people's energies like feeding back to you, it becomes so much more of like a performance that's like willed into existence rather than an engagement that is fueled by everyone. And feeling that difference and knowing that difference, like I continue to battle with it because like making this podcast is the only sort of consistent content that I put out in addition to my music. And I don't want to do like in studio videos and things like that, because mainly like I want to see you in real life. I don't enjoy just looking at a camera and pretending like there's this connection. It just doesn't click. So getting to be out in this park and making this song with one of my old friends and then seeing people's reaction and how they were enjoying it, it just fed into the whole energy. And I think the drums are motivated by that and sit in this like driving but like relaxed space. And I laid down the kick and the snare first, but everything else filled in pretty quick. But here's basically what the kit does throughout the track. And there's this really industrial, like metal sounding factory loop in the back that comes in only about half the time. But I really like the difference that wood and metal sounds have. And I think there's so many times where they sound really good together. And I liked having that really industrial texture in the back every now and again, because it doesn't really sound that aggressive within the track. It just kind of gives it some edge. We basically like made this loop to the point of that session, and I took it home, and we had a couple other ideas as well. Like this was just one of 2 or 3 that we wrote that day. And the next time I opened it up, I was like, oh, this needs I had like this electric bass riff on there to like fill the space for what we were working with, but I wasn't really feeling it as far as it staying there. And I just wanted this like deep, warm, growling, like foundational bass that Noah and I have always tried to get through a bass guitar, but there's just some things that a synth can do better. And that was really the motivation behind this bass line. That thing's just so dirty. It really belongs in like a harder house track, like faster, sped up a bit, but it just gets to hang out with all these live instruments jamming in a park, really. But definitely the thing that this song was missing was some sort of melodic attachment that you could repeat and that would hook you, but only be there sometimes, so it could have like that special like tickle that you can remember. Here comes Diva again, being the perfect synth for me in like 2020 and 21. And I wrote this piece and had it cooking over a lot more of the track, but then realized that giving it space made it just sound more special. And it is very curious that the more music I make, it's like the less you need. You just got to really mean what's there. And I think a lot of the time in my earlier years, I was stacking mediocre ideas on top of each other and hoping that if I turned it down enough, it would be okay, instead of just settling on one area to go and then making the next spot in the song evolve with that other groove if I had too many stacked on top of each other. And this was also just a beautiful like lead to sort of imbue this like heavenly gospel, those small motivational moments that get handed down through the universe and just like hit into your mind and say like, I can do this or you can do this. And that's what I wanted this little silly melody to sound like and feel like. This song is very special to me because I got to make it with one of my oldest friends from an idea that was just made in a park. Like, I don't know how many other times I'll do something like that in my life, but in 2020, it felt necessary to go out and be in nature, but also be doing what comes naturally. And I called it Comical, just in an ode to Noah and our senses of humor and the irony of tragedy. And also, he just worked in a comic book shop, so it seemed like an apt title. So I hope you enjoy it. This is track 10 on Past Amore, Comical.